must see this droid safely delivered to him on Alderaan. This is our most desperate hour. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
Anakin Skywalker, meet Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Obi-Wan, oh, buddy.
Hello there.
General Kenobi. Kenobi!
Obi-Wan.
That's why I'm here.
Because of Obi-Wan.
Kenobi is all that matters now. Is that understood?
Welcome to the Chiss Ascendancy podcast.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to
the Chiss Ascendancy.
It's episode 85, and
We made it.
Dadgum, you keep making that stupid joke. Okay, we are rallying. It's been a really wild couple of weeks for Samuel and I both, but we're here. We are ready, and we are going to record our review of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And you're in luck, because if you wanted a long podcast, this one's it. We're going to review parts 1, 2, and 3 of Obi-Wan Kenobi. So if you've been around for a while, we've been doing reviews for The Mandalorian, especially season 2. We've been doing reviews for the Book of Boba Fett. And so we're going to jump right into this review for
the last episode, or the last season of the Clone Wars.
Yes, and the Bad Batch. So we have a specific style.
Our first ever review was Rise of Skywalker. That's how we got started.
Yes. Since then, we have templates that keep us on track. There's a zillion things of news. We'll probably do a whole episode news breakdown coming out of Star Wars Celebration, but there's a lot of really cool stuff, a lot of book announcements, a lot of show announcements, a lot of different things going on. So we're going to skip all that tonight and just go right at Obi-Wan Kenobi, because that's what everyone's talking about. And then maybe later on, if I want to do like a 10 or 15 minute just solo run of all this news that's come out since Celebration with all that kind of extra stuff, we can do that. I'm sure I'll miss something, but it's okay. So the typical way that we do this, if you're new to the show, I know we have an influx of YouTube watchers. And so if you're new to the show, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for maybe you came on because we've been putting out a lot of shorts recently. I am Robert Downey Jr. and I'm your host. And so we have a format. So our format goes overall thoughts. We rate the episode 1 to 10. We give a standout moment, and then we talk about any new characters or characters that maybe aren't new, but new to the show. You know, something, you know, AKA Darth Vader, things like that. And then typically we have a fifth category, which is what's next. And so we're going to skip number 5 for episodes 1 and 2 because we're already at 3. And then on the 5th episode, we'll get into what we think is going to happen the second half of the season. So you ready to jump into this?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay, so part 1, there's no names. There's no, the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett both have names, but Obi-Wan Kenobi doesn't need one. He just jumps in, and it comes in hot. It's just like our dad pulling a fresh something out of the oven.
Like
it'll burn you.
Chili or something, I don't know.
It will burn
hot,
you
though.
if you are not careful.
No words came out of his mouth from the walk from the microwave
I know.
to the counter.
I know. Dude,
Just
you know
breaths.
what was really funny is Josh Contreras pulled me aside the other day and he was like, "Hey, I have a funny story about your dad." And I said, "Oh no, what happened?" And he said, "I was at the mall the other day, and I'm driving in the parking lot next to the movies in front of where Dick's Sporting Goods is." And he says, "I see this short old guy sprinting out of the store with a bag of shoes in his hand." And he goes, "I didn't know it was your dad." And then I got closer and said, "Oh, look at that. That's Lee Greer." And then he said that as he's looking for a place to park, this guy just flies out going backwards and almost T-bones him. And Josh goes, so I laid in the horn because I didn't know who it was. And I look, and your dad's looking out the driver's side window like this. Like he was scared. Like, of course, Dad doesn't look when he backs up, if anything.
Oh, man.
So I was talking
about
about,
to
so
say,
Dad
when I heard
doesn't
the
know that
story
I know
started
that story.
in a parking lot. I thought you were going to say he like crashed into a pole or something.
No. So he doesn't know I
see
know that
this
story,
guy
right?
yanking the bumper off of his FJ Cruiser.
So Dad calls me today, and he's just like, shooting the breeze, catching up. And he goes, yeah, getting the car back out of the shop tomorrow. And I said, oh, what happened? He goes, nothing. I just feel like I cannot see in that thing. So I got a rear view camera installed. It only took freaking 15 years. He's literally had that car since we were in high school. And he's just now
That's
putting a
funny.
backup camera on that thing, which is like the lowest visibility vehicle on the face of the earth outside of a tank. So
I think a tank's got it beat, honestly.
man, that was a roundabout way of saying, let's start the episode. So, Obi-Wan Kenobi Part 1 starts off hot with Order 66. What were your thoughts on that when we first I thought that they did a good job of, you don't know really what's going on because it's just a skyline, and then it backs up and you can start to see like the soft like landscape and the marble, and you kind of immediately know. Then you see the little helmets of the younglings, and you know that we're right in the middle of the Jedi Temple, but we don't know when in the Jedi Temple.
I had an inkling of when.
Well, I did too, but I was like, okay, cool. It's Obi-Wan Kenobi. We knew there were going to be flashbacks.
Yeah.
So what if this is a flashback to his childhood, his upbringing, his Padawanship? And
Very cool.
but it wasn't. The
It was
501st
not.
comes storming in, guns a-blazing. So anyway, I start shooting.
So anyway, I started blasting.
And the 501st storms in, immediately starts trying to take out these kids. And
I was a little hopeful that we would get to see early Darth Vader in action there, but
yeah, I was hopeful for Hayden Christensen as young Vader, and I was also hopeful that maybe we would get a POV from the Jedi who are like looking both ways, and it would be cool to see. I wanted to see just a split second of Grogu.
I'm not
just
gonna lie,
a little bitty bit.
I would have loved to see young Vader like just mowing down some other Jedi.
Oh, 100%. It would have been cool to see him take down that stupid double-bladed Jedi from Battlefront 2.
From Battlefront 2, 2005, that SOB that jumps down from the rafters while you're about to go through the door. Me, a poor unsuspecting clone just trying to destroy some archives. Don't mind me any.
Destroy the archives. Whoa, Jedi Master.
Or I think we were protecting
you've been
the archives.
killed by the
That was
Jedi
the
Master.
thing.
Yeah, you're protecting them because you want their knowledge. So I was hoping for that. I was hoping for a little peeky peek at Grogu. Not 2 episodes worth where he takes over the whole thing. But just a little peek.
You're
just
not
a little
bitter.
Just a little smidge.
You're not bitter at all.
No, I'm very bitter. But the Jedi Knight or Master or Trainer, whoever that is, protecting the younglings, does a fantastic job, and it just kind of shows you how overwhelming the March on the Jedi Temple must have been.
Better than Ki-Adi-Mundi, worse than that one Jedi Padawan who fights those clones in front of Bail Organa.
Oh, yeah. Jet.
Yeah.
Or I think his name's Zet, but his real name's Jet. That's George Lucas's son.
Yeah, I knew that much.
Yeah. So they survive, a good ways, but then the Master is killed, and after that, you hear one of the Padawans say, "So what do we do?" And they say, "Run," and they take off. And so that's when the show really starts. And then you fade to black, and then 10 years later, you open up and you're on Tatooine, and you have Obi-Wan Kenobi. And right off the bat, he's at work cutting some sushimi out of a giant sand ray / whale. Was that wild to you or what?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what it was. Also, I was like, isn't that meat like rotten at this point?
Yeah, I was wondering those same things. I was wondering, is this when I first saw it, all I could see was like the shape, which had like the ridges, and I was like, oh, sick, it's a giant crate, like a back or a skeleton or something,
Yeah.
Almost like, because the crates now have like a snakiness to them, And I was like, oh, cool. Kind of like when you see a snake skeleton, it's these giant vertebrae. So I thought that's what it was. But then when we come around, I realized they're cutting fresh meat off of this sea creature. And I really want to know, like, in The Mandalorian, they talked about how the crate dragon has some kind of acid that it puts out, and that's how it almost like moves through the sand, or at least that's my understanding of it. I just want to know, like, sand is like running in sand just on top of the sand is immensely difficult. And so I'm wondering how these creatures are supposed to freaking move through the sand like that.
I would say something probably akin to Bugs Bunny.
Oh,
just
okay.
tunneling
That's
through
good.
the earth. Yeah.
Well, that giant manta ray should have taken a left turn at Albuquerque, because it ended up it ended up dead. And so then you have Obi-Wan and
Poor
his
misguided
crew.
soul.
Say again?
Poor misguided soul. You wonder how long it's been there, because you see a whole structure built into its carapace, and then people like walking out of it at whistle time.
What if you got up close to it and they tried to reach inside to get it, and a leopard seal's there, just like that one dog movie where they're trying to eat the dead whale? What freaking movie is that? 8 Below?
I don't even remember. All I could think about was that scene from Surf's Up where he's talking about how his dad died when he was young, and it's like him with like a board or like a meal or something, and then they like pan out in the picture and there's an orca like crashing on the shore.
Oh yeah. I forgot about that.
Oh, it's freaking hilarious. I live for that movie.
Surf's Up is a classic. Can we get a Surf's Up 2? Is that Disney?
I think that's Pixar or DreamWorks. Yeah.
Can we get a Surf's Up 2, please, DreamWorks? So we're with Obi-Wan. He's living his meaningless life. He's, very defeated. And from there, we have this moment where he goes into town, and you see at some point the Inquisitors arrive on Tatooine, and the Grand Inquisitor, the third sister, which is Reva, and the fifth brother are looking for a Jedi, and we don't know if it's Obi-Wan or someone else, but they're looking for a Jedi. They go to this bar, and I've got to say, after all the griping and complaining about the Grand Inquisitor's appearance from the trailer, I actually like it. I think obviously it's different than the cartoon, but
it's also very different from any Powans we've seen previous to now in live action.
Yeah. But the main gripe was his head was too big, and but then the secondary gripe was how lazy of them they couldn't even put his dark side eyes on him like he has in Rebels. And but similar to the short that we put out recently about Count Dooku and his Sith eyes, it seems like the Grand Inquisitor, as he dips into anger or frustration or those darker emotions, they flare. And very similar to what we talked about with Dooku in that short, where when he's really like diving into the dark side, when he's training Savage, there's that moment where you see his eyes glow in the Clone Wars. So as the Inquisitor is describing the Jedi, or as he's getting, when you first see him, it's pretty quick right off the bat that you realize he's irritated with Reva. And so whenever those moments are happening, his eyes do glow. And I actually prefer that, because he's not Darth Maul. He's not Darth Sidious. He's not any of those characters who are just, diving all the way into the dark side all the time.
I will say, I think his head's smaller. Like, it's just not as tall. You know what I mean? Like,
I think that his head's significantly bigger, bulbous.
Yeah.
Which
it's more like a light bulb, but should look more like a cucumber.
Yeah. I think that I really do wonder if they offered it to Jason Isaacs. You know what I mean?
I don't know.
But anyways, you have that moment, and Reva's very extreme right off the bat. And she's just going to kill this Jedi right off the top, when obviously the Grand Inquisitor, like, his job is to,
inquisite,
ask questions. Yeah, his job is to inquisitize and see if he can't turn the Jedi, see if the Jedi has any secrets of any other people. And you find out that she thinks that these Jedi that they're hunting at this point, 10 years into the game, are just scraps. And the Inquisitor says, well, scraps are all we have left. And part of you realizes maybe leaving him alive will lead you to a bigger fish somewhere. And so the Jedi gets away, and one way or another, they're looking for this Jedi, and Obi-Wan, after he spent time checking on Luke, checking on the hut, you see him buy the T-16 toy from a Jawa, which is really cool. I enjoyed the bartering over action figures. That really hit home for me. And
I imagine it did.
So that was really cool.
Freaking Jawa's a scalper, man. We hate him to death.
Yeah. And I love that when he said, Tika, if you're going to steal from me, at least clean the parts. And Tika says, cleaning is extra.
Yeah.
I thought that was really funny.
That's the first glimpse we get of the Kenobi before, because we're looking at him as, the butcher or whatever. And there's the bully who's the foreman. And Kenobi would never, ever have put up with that. You know what I mean? He would have stood up for any amount of equality or equity or whatever you want to call it. And he just let it happen. He just stood down. That's I think that's the first glimpse we get of how broken he is. And then in the comfort of his own home, he's a little bit sassy again. He's a little bit snarkier. Yeah. I think that's kind of funny.
It's funny because, he's like, if you're going to steal from me and give me the parts, just clean them at least. And Tika says cleaning is extra. So you have those cool moments. And then he gets the toy, and then he delivers it that night to the Lars homestead.
After he cleans it up and fixes it.
Yep. He cleans it up, fixes it, and then gives it to, obviously Luke is about 9 or 10 at this point. And so then on his way back home, he's found by this other Jedi. And I think this is one of the saddest moments of episode 1, which is
definitely
this Jedi's running for his life. There's 3 Inquisitors on his tail, one of which is the Grand Inquisitor, another of which is Reva, who desires to have authority and power, and the third is, as we know now, the 5th brother, who thinks that he's the second best Inquisitor behind the Grand Inquisitor. So 3 of the most hungriest, most excitable hunters are the ones on his tail, and you come face to face with Obi-Wan Kenobi, who killed Darth Maul before he was raised from the dead in the Clone Wars, but defeated Maul.
As far as this guy knows, is the only remaining member of the Jedi Council before Order 66. He doesn't know about Yoda, I assume.
Right.
So it's
Mace
like
is
you look
gone.
up to this person who
killed
was
Grievous,
the Jedi. You know what I mean? He was the man.
It's interesting whenever a character,
if I saw Obi-Wan in that spot, I'd be like, oh, okay, I'm saved now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well,
it's a character that is defensive in nature, but ridiculously good offensively. He's the negotiator who can kill Sith Lords. So it's you know what I mean? Anakin is extremely powerful, but he's not a negotiator. He doesn't know how to play defense. And Obi-Wan is naturally defensive, but his offense is equally deadly.
Yeah, and I was jumping ahead a little bit. You see him doing a little hand-to-hand combat in the second episode. And so I was watching with my wife, and when he was fighting in that hallway in particular, I was like, did you notice how he's not playing offensively at all? He's waiting for them to strike. He's using their momentum against them. You know what I mean? He's very defensively minded. He's not typically the attack kind of guy. Right. And so it's cool to see that kind of take the fore in his personality when he's starting to step back into the kind of not a desert hermit kind of character.
Right. How, that meme where there's a guy sitting on the couch with his girlfriend, and Aragorn in the Two Towers kicks the orc's head, and it's and then it's you don't have to say anything. It's just a casual watch. You don't have to say anything. And then he pauses and he goes, "Did you know?" Obviously about Aragorn breaking his toe there. So you're newly married. You've been married for how many months now? 2 or 3 months?
2, yeah.
So married for 2 months, and your bride is new to Star Wars, and Obi-Wan's the perfect door to show her into this wonderful universe. How much of a strain has it been on your mental capacity not to explain every single detail that you see on screen?
So the good news is she wants to understand. So she's asking questions, and I'm like, I'm glad you asked. And I answer the question with a very elongated, explanation of what's going on here, which inevitably raises more questions. So
That's funny.
She's like, I'm sorry if I'm asking any like too many questions. I was like, ask them all. I'll answer every single one. You just ask as many as you want.
It's funny, like whenever he's sad and he's calling out to Qui-Gon and he doesn't hear him, and you're like, you pause it and you're like, this is so sad because really it's been 10 years. 10 years he's been waiting to hear.
Well, I told her, I was like, they're really
that
building
is
on
sad,
this,
dude.
so it's going to be a big reveal when they show him. You know, just like, like
definitely.
This is important. Notice this.
Well, it's so sad because in my mind, whenever, especially after Clone Wars, seeing Qui-Gon reaching out, he's the one reaching out to Yoda. Yoda doesn't go looking for Qui-Gon. Obviously, he doesn't know to, but he doesn't, Qui-Gon contacts him and he's saying, Master Yoda, he takes him to Dagobah and all these other things. So to have a moment where Obi-Wan for a decade has been having these nightmares, and if they're that terrible and filled with post-traumatic stress 10 years later, just imagine what it was like the first 3 or 4 or 5 years, like the clarity of the nightmare, the weight that he feels when he wakes up, and the world's in a crappy place and he feels 100% responsible. And he wakes up and he doesn't have a bed. He just has one of those little camping on the ground foam mattresses that you get at Academy. And he sits up and he's calling out to his master, and there's nothing. And it makes you realize, especially for the deeper fan, you're like, frick, there's not been anything for 10 years. This sucks. And so it really does a great explanation. And so Obi-Wan, who's the champion of causes, is sought out by a Jedi who seems to be on the younger side of things, was probably, who knows if he was even a Padawan yet. You know what I mean? Like Obi-Wan was around 13 when he became a Padawan. So this guy could have been younger than that. If this guy was in his early 20s, he could have not even been a Padawan yet, or barely been a Padawan. And
my guess is he's probably off planet. I don't think he would have survived as a youngling.
Right. So he barely survives. He's not at the temple. He has no leadership. He has no nothing. He's somehow made it through. He survived 10 years, which is more than can be said for almost anyone else.
Yeah.
And then he finds Obi-Wan Kenobi, who is the oasis in the desert. And then he goes in for the drink of water, and it was just a mirage.
That's sad, man. It was hard to watch that. It reminded me of
hugging a cactus like freaking Tiger, or freaking a Feifel.
Rank him.
All right. I would say Feifel goes west, and then after Feifel goes west, I'll actually take The Secret of Manhattan Island second.
Really? Second?
Yeah.
Above
I really
the
enjoy that
original
one.
American Tale.
I really enjoy that one. I love the Indians.
Is it because of Scuttlebutt?
Scuttlebutt's a fan fave. And then Friends of the Working Mouse is one of my favorite
Villains
songs of all
in that
time.
film were substantial.
Yeah, man, that's when I knew I needed to stop trusting the man. Was really young when I watched Treasure of Manhattan Island. So now, whenever all the politicians on either side of the aisle are just total trash, I'm like, I've been knowing this since Friends of the Working Mouse. And then I would say the original American Tale, and then fourth, I would say Mystery of the Night Monster.
Of course, Mystery of the Night Monster has to come fourth. It has to.
Yeah. It's not bad. It's just the least of the apostles.
Yeah, I'll say 2, 1, 3, 4.
Agreeable. So just like Feifel in the desert hugging a cactus, this poor Jedi finds that's what sucks, is that he's not just looking for Obi-Wan and then dies. He arrives at his destination. And just like Candid Camera, whenever the people get off and they're like, yeah, you're in Miami. And he's like, I just left Miami 6 hours ago.
And then freaking Obi-Wan tries to pull the Thor on that one planet where he's like, no, it's not me.
Yeah. If I do like this, I mean, it's quite all right.
You're thinking of someone else.
No,
it's
Obi-Wan.
like not even he's like, I don't know who you're talking about. I'm
Obi-Wan would. What if he puts his hair in his face? He's like, Obi-Wan wouldn't do his hair like this. Because tonight will be the night. Dude,
I don't even know how to spell Obi-Wan.
Who's Obi-Wan? Not Obi-Wan Kenobi, I hope. I don't
This is who I've been my whole life.
My name's Ben Kenobi. No relation. So
Common mistake.
So he sends this guy off, and he's like, you want my advice? Go in the middle of the desert bury your lightsaber and figure out something out to do. And I
Which was
like,
not
"Yeah."
very subtle foreshadowing, by the way.
Right.
He's like, you want some advice? Do exactly what I did.
Right. So fast forwarding ahead, you meet Leia. She's a gem. She's absolutely Leia.
Dude, she is so adorable, and she plays it so well.
She's perfect
Like,
for the role.
She is perfect.
And because she's perfect for the role, then she's obviously extremely mischievous, just like Leia. And it costs her because Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers is a bounty hunter and abducts her. And we find out, I'm trying to skip ahead a little bit so we can get to the actual review, not just a synopsis. But basically, she's been abducted on orders of Reva because she knows that Bail Organa has a connection to Obi-Wan Kenobi, and she's trying to flesh him out. And she knows Bail will contact Obi-Wan. And so to clarify that, I did get a couple of texts and calls and questions. Whenever Reva says that Obi-Wan served with her father talking about Leia in the Clone Wars, she's not talking about Anakin. She does not know that Leia is Anakin's daughter. She's talking about Bail Organa because similar to in A New Hope, when Leia's sending the distress signal, she said, "You fought for my father, or you served my father during the Clone Wars." It's the same thing. So Reva is making the connection between Bail and Obi-Wan, not Anakin and Leia.
I have two thoughts to challenge that. One, Bail didn't fight in the war. And
Correct.
she said fought alongside the father in the war. The second thing is when she's talking to Obi-Wan, she says Anakin Skywalker is alive, which is the biggest secret in the Empire. Like, Darth Vader straight up killed folks for knowing that he was Anakin Skywalker.
Right.
So if
but
she's
no one
saying
else,
that she
no one
knows
else
who
knew
Darth
that Padme
Vader
was
is,
pregnant.
Yeah, but she knows who Anakin is, so there's no telling what she actually knows.
Correct.
She already has the forbidden fruit, man. So it wouldn't surprise me if she also knew. I wouldn't say that Bail fought in the war, so I wouldn't say that somebody fought alongside Bail in the war. Is my thought process on it.
I agree, except for no one outside of the Organa family knows that Leia's adopted.
Everybody knows. Because she
the cousin later in that episode says they don't let you leave this planet, otherwise everyone would know you're not a real Organa.
Well, he doesn't. He just says they don't want you. They don't want anybody to know about you in general. Like, they wanted her to be the secret, but he was like, "You're not even a real Organa." Those were two like disconnected thoughts.
But whenever Bail is talking about Obi-Wan has to be the one to go get her, whenever he's like, "Why don't you just ask the Senate? Why don't you just ask the army? Why don't you ask whoever?" He says it has to be you, because if anybody else gets too close, they'll dig into it. I think that they're really presenting Leia as Bail and Bria's
what he
daughter.
says is, "You're the only one who knows how important she is."
It is that, but it's also he doesn't want any prying eyes. He mentions.
I would agree with that aspect of it, but I think that she might actually know who it is. Because I wouldn't say that if she didn't already know that Darth Vader's Anakin. That's already something she shouldn't know. So if she knows that much about him, she could probably dig into.
I think that we don't know for sure, but I think, okay, this is like way at the end of the second episode, so we're moving around a lot, but I think that there's a reason she knows that Anakin is Vader. I don't think she has any clue that Padme had kids, because everybody thought Padme died. Even the people that knew her thought that Padme died in childbirth. There's not a singular person outside of Yoda, Obi-Wan, Bail, his wife, and the Lars family knows that these kids are Padme's kids.
But I think at the same time, nobody outside of Obi-Wan and Yoda and Palpatine know that Anakin's Darth Vader.
But the reason that Reva knows that is, in my opinion, I think that they show Order 66 and they show those kids because Reva's one of those Padawans. And I think somewhere along the way, instead of being killed, she's abducted. And that's how she knows who Anakin is, because he's at the temple and the clones already revert to him as Lord Vader before the suit.
I don't know if that's entirely true because of how Grand Inquisitor talks to Reva. He says that you're trash and you're found in the streets, which means she wasn't one of the Jedi that was converted.
So you think she's one of the young people that have just been abducted?
Yeah, I think she was just found. I think that's why she's so hungry, and I think that's why she's like kind of an outcast amongst the Inquisitors.
Here's my thing. If they can explain to me why Reva knows about Anakin because she's a Jedi, or maybe, I don't know, maybe she just stole her way into some information.
I think she just did research really well, but she also seems to intuit things very strongly. You know, she pulls information from the mind of Hadja, which is something that we've only ever really seen Kylo Ren do. That's kind of an advanced thing. Or we see her, you know, readily reading Obi-Wan's emotions. So I think she's just got a very high degree of intuition and is able to figure things out that most people wouldn't.
But whose mind could she read to know who Anakin is that isn't powerful enough to feel her probing their mind?
Well, and I'm not saying that I can't substantiate that. I just see that based in her character. So I'm saying that she probably has, you know, she's an ace news hound. You know what I mean? She's got her ear to the ground. She's figuring things out. And she doesn't even share that information with the other Inquisitors. She's just saying that Leia had a link to Kenobi, and that's all she says.
Right.
She plays her cards very close to her vest.
I don't know. I'm gonna have to disagree. I don't think she knows who Leia is. It's too dangerous of a card to play, even for her.
It's too dangerous for her to say that she knows Darth Vader's Anakin. If Vader found out about that, she's dead. She's done so.
Yeah, well, that's what's gonna happen for sure. She's gonna
for sure.
Either
Vader cares
the
this
Grand
much about the
Inquisitor is
Inquisitors.
gonna kill her, or
Vader threatens to kill him on a daily basis. He doesn't care about them at all.
Yeah. I just feel like knowing, I don't know, dude. I don't know how she would know that because Vader himself doesn't even know Leia exists until Return of the Jedi.
Right. But there's
so there's
no,
there would be no
you know
record whatsoever.
I think, I mean, you could think about it. She'd be able to track the flight logs for Padme on Mustafar. There's that kind of connection. Then on
but I think Obi-Wan and Balin would have wiped all that.
I mean, they could have tried, but she clearly knows something that people are trying to hide. If she can figure out something that the Emperor tried to hide, I think she could figure out something that Obi-Wan and Yoda tried to hide.
Yeah, maybe. That's really interesting. But long story short,
I think there's just too big a question mark, in my opinion.
Yeah. I think they're playing off of the line that Leia says about Bail. I think that she's talking about Bail.
Maybe
about years ago.
I just think it's weird for her to say that Bail fought in the war. You know what I mean? I think that's that'd be a stretch.
Yeah, I can see what you're saying. I hear what you're saying. Okay, so
either way, she knows too much.
Yeah, she knows way too much, especially for her own safety.
You know what I think is interesting? That they brought in the character of Reva. Because I feel like they already had a very strong candidate for this character in Second Sister.
Second Sister would have been dead by now.
She doesn't die in Fallen Order.
Vader kills her. Yeah.
Oh my god. How long has it been since I played that last mission? Does he kill her?
Yeah.
Wow. I don't remember that at all.
Yeah. Remember, she's
the more you know.
She takes her mask off, and then Vader comes up behind her, and she says, "Avenge us" or something like that, and then he strikes her down, and then Cal defends himself just enough to escape. It's like one of the very last.
That sounds
things.
like Vader. All I remember from that mission is running for my life desperately when I saw Vader in the castle because I knew that my character wasn't nearly strong enough to combat something like that.
Yeah. It's in that last short that I made too about why I think Reva knows. There's a little clip of that. But okay, so let's break this down and then move on to part 2. But overall thoughts, we've kind of talked a lot about that. Did you think it was a good opener? Did you think did you want more from it? I know that the good thing is 2 episodes came out back to back, so even if you didn't like everything in there was more to go.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was very different than I expected in that I always expected Luke's always been Kenobi's connection to the Force when Kenobi is stranded. You know, he's been
Right.
Kenobi's driving purpose. And so I always thought it would involve him a lot more. So when Leia ends up being the driving force, especially because we see in, I think it's episode 5, where Yoda and Obi-Wan are talking, and basically Yoda's like, hey, you put too much faith in this kid, basically saying that he thinks Leia would be the more suitable candidate. And it just seems that Obi-Wan has this closeness with Luke that he never ever had with Leia. So I wouldn't have expected this connection really to evolve the way it has so far. And I never expected Obi-Wan to be so far removed from the Force to where, a little bit into episode 2, he had to strain so hard just to catch Leia. Like I never would have expected that. So it's very different to see him in the setting that we've seen him in, this far into the show.
I never would have thought that he would ever even leave
Tatooine.
So I thought that bringing Leia in is the perfect catalyst, because even if they were like, Bail Organa's going to die, he'd be like, oh, sucks to suck. Like he wouldn't,
Man,
Leia's the only thing.
It's rough, huh?
Yeah. I thought that was real interesting. I thought that the power struggle between the Inquisitors is really interesting.
And I like seeing that aspect of Star Wars, because as far as like just the movies and the shows, excluding like maybe Rebels and the Clone Wars, you don't get to see that power struggle in the dark side, combatants as much as you would in like maybe Old Republic books, where it's like, just second nature for them to be backstabbing,
Malgus and Adras and all those guys
against each other. Yeah. And so I think it's cool to see that kind of dynamic. And I think
I really want to see
a lot more fully on the nature of the dark side.
I really want to see the Grand Inquisitor versus Reva. I really want to see it. I think the Grand Inquisitor just chews rub and spits her out, to be completely honest with you.
Yeah, he's dead now, though.
Negative.
Right? Because they're talking about taking his seat.
No.
You don't think he's dead?
Because Rebels is 5 years before A New Hope. This is 10 years before A New Hope.
Okay, I couldn't figure out the timeline on that, because I thought Rebels was after, and I knew Grand Inquisitor was in Rebels.
So
they're sneaky.
This is so Fallen Order is
before
pretty quick after
it's
66.
5 years. 5 years,
and then there's that 5-year gap. So you have the initial Order 66, where Cal's master dies. 5 years later is the main storyline. 5 years after that is Kenobi, and then 5 years after Kenobi is Rebel Season 1. Because Rebel Season 1 is 4 or 5 years before.
Yeah, that makes sense, because Kenobi would be older. Stupid of me not to realize that.
And also, Powans have 2 stomachs.
I wouldn't worry about the stomach. I was just worried about the fact that he got freaking impaled with the lightsaber.
Well, Maul got cut the whole freaking half.
Yeah, but that's Darth Maul. That's a joke.
Okay, hold that thought. Let's finish 1, and then we'll move on to 2, because that's where it starts getting more meaty. So for part 1, just in and of itself, rate it 1 to 10.
9.
Really? Holy!
I'm gonna give them all a 9. I'm gonna give them all a 9. I'm here for every single one of those episodes. I'm a fanboy.
Okay, and then standout moment for you.
I think the standout moment for me was just like seeing the pain in Kenobi when he realized how much he sacrificed by letting the other Jedi down, because he's so convincingly broken. You know what I mean?
Right.
You never see him like this almost ever. So just to see, it's very compelling for me as someone who's like a follower of Kenobi. You know what I mean? Like
this is your favorite character.
Man. So, yeah, I think that was the most moving moment for me, just to see that whole kind of, it's almost like the B-roll dynamic, but it's really, really expressing how far he's come from the Kenobi that we knew in episode 3, or the Kenobi that we come to know in A New Hope and Rebels.
There's I don't know if they essentially low-key confirmed a second season for Kenobi. So there may be still some transformation to go. But
when did they do that?
I saw a little rumor report earlier today from a source that said that they mentioned something in a meeting about they changed the ending of the final episode of this year or this season's finale so that it could make room for a second season.
Because when this show was conceived, it was a one-off. Like,
Right.
This is it.
But it's the same thing for Book of Boba Fett. It's a limited series. This one's a limited series, but they just decided to go back and do some more.
I'm not going to.
So it's the same thing where, they could do, okay, Book of Boba is going to go do this other thing after he's already taken over Tatooine. No big deal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They could go. Yeah. They can just add to it. And so I've heard they're adding to Kenobi, and they've actually alternated things that's going to be at the end of this season's finale, so that the door for the second season makes more sense. It doesn't feel as final.
Okay, I'm here for it. Frick, do it.
So okay, so new characters. You have a lot. You have a lot of new characters in this show in this part.
Yep.
Everyone in this show is a new
Jedi's
character
name?
at this point.
What's Youngblood's name?
That dies.
Does he
I don't
have?
Remember.
Yeah, is he given a name?
He has a name of some sort, but I don't remember.
He introduces himself, right? I can't remember it. So we got that guy. Reva's a new character. Yeah. I think as far as characters that are important to the story, those are the only characters that are new.
Right. I think that the unsung hero of episode 1 for me is Joel Edgerton as Owen Lars. I think his Owen is convincing. I think he's picked up on Owen's
the character that we get from A New Hope. Yeah, definitely.
Like whenever he's like, well, such and such and such, and he does like a face like that, and it looks just like old boy that did it back in the 70s.
Yeah, I think
so that was really convincing.
He's just like angry enough to be a younger version, without like the quiet bitterness
not as
that's
callous.
The old man. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's interesting to me is I can tell that I'm really into it because characters I know have to make it to A New Hope. I'm like, like whenever Reva was pressing Owen, I was like, what the frick is he going to do? Even though I know Obi-Wan and Owen are both going to survive for another 10 years. I was like,
that was me. I mean, again, skipping ahead, but episode 3, when Kenobi is like around people, like he's with the stormtroopers, and then when Vader shows up, like my heart was thumping. I was legitimately nervous. I was like, oh my god, he's gonna be shafted
I know.
if Vader shows up in the flesh.
So you're giving it a 9. I'll give it like a 7.5. It's not perfect. There's things that I would have changed, but I really liked it. And
the elusive 10 still remains out there, but I enjoyed it quite a bit.
I think Reva's character is annoying, and I can't tell if it's because the character is supposed to be annoying or if I want the portrayal to be different. But I will say 3 episodes in, the character's building up enough that I'm appreciating how Moses Ingram is portraying the character in episode 1 more. The more you see, the more you're like, okay, cool. I'm growing with this character. So part 2,
I will withhold judgment at this point just because I want to see what direction they take it.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
I'm just very, very interested to see the development of it, and what role she plays, because the way that Ewan McGregor talked about her, it seems that she's very important to the story overall.
Right.
And I mean, that's already apparent, but I'm just very curious in how that plays into the conclusion that we're going to get here in a couple episodes.
Yeah. So part 2, at the end of part 1, he decides, okay, you're right. Leia's just as important. Bale really, really puts the squeeze on because he says it's not about the boy and you know it. It's about you. We all failed.
A classic Bail Organa speech that cuts straight to the core. Dude, he came for it in the flesh too. He wasn't going to settle for a no over a hologram.
Yeah.
He came all the way. Were you nervous
really
when you saw that little red light on the little astromech shaft? I was like, oh my God, who is it?
Who's in there? Yeah. I didn't
expect Bail at all.
No,
so they really got me. They got me.
I thought either another Jedi, like a more important Jedi, or a bad guy, but Bail was definitely not on my list. Part 2, it starts off pretty quick. We're on Daiyu, which is kind of they said it's kind of like the Tokyo of the Star Wars world. And just like a lot of those places in life, like a Las Vegas or Los Angeles or New York, some of those places that have the flashing lights, but it's like you're either on top of the game here or it's a world full of despair. So it's being
Yeah.
presented like this beautiful place, but right off the bat, Obi-Wan's asking this guy, "Hey, help me track this ship," and the guy's like, "Nobody's trackable here. Everybody loves their secrets on Daiyu." And
He's
then
like,
he
"Frickin'
goes up
no."
to a young girl,
Ewan
comes up to
McGregor's
him and is like,
daughter.
"Do you want some drugs?" Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that was
Ewan's
cool.
daughter.
I thought that was
And
cool
basically
because
says,
he had famously kept his kids out of the public eye. So
yeah, out of all
I
that.
actually genuinely had no idea what his kids looked like. So I saw that.
And she had a
was like,
sick
no freaking
haircut.
way. Yeah,
Yeah, I
kind of
thought her
like that
haircut
girl
was dope, too.
from Chappie.
I don't know if I've ever seen Chappie.
It's with Hugh Jackman. It's about the robot, but the girl, she's like,
Oh,
her
yeah.
and the guy are I think they're in a band from South Africa, but she's got like her bangs cut up to like her actual hairline. That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, I recall that now. I haven't seen the movie, but I know what you're talking about. So you're on Daiyu. It's really sad because he's like, "I'm looking for my daughter. She was taken here," and she said, "Once someone's here, you're not going to find him. I was someone's daughter at 1.2." That's like so freaking sad.
Yeah.
Which is sad because she's saying that to her dad in real
Yeah,
life.
her
So you're
actual
like,
dad.
"Oh, geez."
Hey, real quick, I've got a weird
But it was really
brainwave.
sad because there's kind of a, yeah. Go ahead.
In case anyone fact checks me, Surf's Up was Universal. It wasn't DreamWorks.
Have you been thinking about that this whole time?
Yeah.
That's funny. But it was really sad. Like, you know, a reference to like slave labor or human trafficking or things like that. So that was really sad.
When you know that's something that's close to Kenobi's heart as a character because of the whole slaver ring story arc in Clone Wars.
Right.
You know, that's something he's obviously very passionate about.
Well, it's something he's passionate about, and it's something that his one-time best friend Anakin Skywalker is very passionate about. So it's like another thing. It's just more things that are reminding him of this.
Yeah, definitely.
And so you have this moment where he turns around. There's a young boy that says, "Well, if you need help, there's a Jedi." You meet, is it Haja?
Yeah.
You meet him. What did you think about him? Fake Jedi.
To the city. I thought he was pretty funny. Nice little comic relief because this show's been very tense to this point.
Yeah. Was it too Last Jedi comedy style for you, or were you in on it?
I was in on it, especially when he's like, "You found me. What's the bounty on me now?
They say.
1 million?
Yeah.
2 million?
I like when he says,
because you're not gonna get it."
Yeah. I kind of chuckled when he goes, "Wow,
What would you ask again? It doesn't matter. I'm not gonna answer it.
He goes,
You're as good as they say.
Dude, he's
that
super
was
funny.
that one got me pretty good.
I think I was like cackling when he was like, "Don't be alarmed. This is a Jedi mind trick. I'm inside your mind." And Obi-Wan's like,
yeah, Obi-Wan's like looking at him like, "This son of a gun." That really got me.
Dude, that was killing me, bro.
So he's looking. He basically Haja tells him, "If you want to get to the sewer, there's only one way in, but you'll never make it in." Cut to Star Wars Breaking Bad, where he pulls the whole Walter White and does an explosion in the lab.
Nice little pickpocket action.
Yeah, which slides him into the back alley area, which is exactly where they want him. So he fights his way in. Did you also have sympathy pain whenever he tried to do like the temple slap to that freaking Zabrak and stabbed his freaking horn?
Although I was I'm such an Obi-Wan fanboy. I was like, "Oh, that's the noise he made when he kicked General Grievous's shin." You know?
Yeah, I thought yeah, it got me too. I was like, "Oh, the Grievous kick." I thought the exact same thing. So that was cool.
That's nice. Nice little return to.
So you have that moment, and so they're answering to Riva, and they capture him for a split second. I like that, just the same way that it's nice to see not that it's nice, but it's interesting to see the brokenness of Obi-Wan.
I love it.
I love seeing the comeback side of Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is like so peaceful and like not like Anakin in his spitefulness, and then whenever he throws the glitter stem down on the ground and it gets in
Dude.
everybody's face and he
And
knees
then
Flea
he
right in the
knees
stomach.
Flea in the chest. Oh my god! I told Tori, I was like, that was personal. He absolutely didn't need to do that.
Yeah. It was one of those moments
That-
where I was watching with Macy, and whenever that part happens, I was like this. Like, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
But of course we know like the ins and outs of the character. So we were like, this is so against him. He's pissed.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. And then they have to report to Riva and he's
Mhm.
gone. And
When I was showing,
you got
I
to see Flea
absolutely,
in his natural habitat, stoned out of his mind.
I paused episode 2 and because Tori doesn't listen to Red Hot Chili Peppers, except for her mom does. So that's something her mom and I have in common. But
That's kind of cool.
I was showing her, I was like, so this is what I think of Flea as. And I pull up the music video to Dark Necessities, where it's like, just playing like,
Right.
bass like a freaking madman. And then you see him, he's like, it doesn't matter. You're not going to get her back,
Yeah.
So,
He did an okay job. He wasn't terrible.
I thought he was pretty good. I thought he was pretty convincing for like kind of a spice head bounty hunter sort of, mercenary. I think he's convincing for what he was supposed to be.
Yeah, I didn't like his yellow shirt and matching yellow scarf or bandana. I
What did
didn't
you
like
think
that
about
part of
his
his outfit.
braided rat tail?
It was sick.
Yeah.
I was a fan of that. So the coolest part of the episode is definitely the second half, where all the bounties are put on Obi-Wan, and it's across the whole city, and they use his mugshot from Revenge of the Sith, which I thought was really cool. And then you get a freaking Velociraptor bounty hunter who's looking for him, and Forlom.
What
were your thoughts on all this?
That was a Skeksis, actually. Don't mean
Oh
to burst your
no!
bubble. They're searching for the essence, man.
The essence.
I'm
Yeah,
still
that's
wanting them
our
to put-
first.
Still
Oh,
wanting
yeah.
to put a Skek Tech profile picture on Netflix so I can change it, but
Dude,
that's the Skeksis that Mark Hamill voices. So I'm a fanboy.
It's a Tish Shar, is my understanding. The podcast put out a short on that
Mm-hmm.
June 2nd. I don't know when this episode's going to air, but Thursday night. So check that out. But they're like basically little velociraptors that have worked with the
freaking cool,
Empire and the Rebellion and stuff like that. So really cool characters. And I love that they're dipping into these weird backwater EU ideas for characters and stuff. And then as
was that
him and
confirmed
Leia
Forlom, or was it just a similar droid?
it's a similar droid, but I mean, I'm guessing it's Forlom.
Because
He
I looked, I was
he
like,
specifically
oh, cool,
was
Forlom.
rumored.
Cool.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's 10 years before A New Hope, which would be like 13 or 14 years before Empire. So it makes sense that maybe this is before him and Zuckuss are a pair.
Mm-hmm.
So I was hoping to see both of them, but you get to see them on the run. They're trying to get away. And then you have this really crazy moment where throughout the show, Leia starts to show a little bit of her Force sensitivity with her insight into people's emotions and things.
Mm-hmm.
Like once she rips her cousin a new one, which I thought was dope.
Yeah, it was pretty fun, actually.
And then she starts to see, like, all she needs is to see the picture of Obi-Wan on the wanted posters, and she
to figure things out.
I mean, it's
and she had
incredibly
a very
quick
strong
how she puts it
sense,
together.
Yeah, of the fact that he was very reserved or guarded. She's like, I know you're hiding something.
Right.
And from then
Yeah,
on, she's a hound dog.
Yeah, her intuition is definitely beyond what would be her natural capability. So it's definitely a Force thing.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is, especially in the certain point of view books, you realize that Yoda wanted to train Leia.
Yoda
and thought that Leia was the choice.
Yeah, I think it was because, like in episode 1, when you see Luke kind of give Owen the runaround and he's like fake piloting, and you see Obi-Wan almost smirk a little bit, and I was like, oh my god, he's thinking about Anakin, and I think Yoda also sees that connection to Anakin, and he doesn't want to have that same
and in
turnaround.
If you remember an episode
that Leia's Padme,
right, in episode 4, it's interesting because A New Hope, Owen's just trying, and Luke has graduated. He's that graduation age where he's like, I want to do something else. And Owen's trying his best. He realizes he's losing him, and he's trying to keep him around, which after this show now is even more sad, watching Owen try to be like hard on him to keep him around, but really it's because he wants to protect him. And but Beru says he won't stay around for long. He's got too much of his father in him. So everybody sees the Anakin, and Obi-Wan sees the Padme and Leia, which is really sweet. And then you have this confrontation between the Grand Inquisitor and the fifth brother talking to Reva. And this is that moment where she's gone too far. She's kidnapped a senator's daughter. It's just all this nonsense of like, you've gone way beyond your payroll. Like you're beyond your pay grade. You shouldn't be doing that. You can't make those calls. And, but since you went ahead and did it, it reminded me of the time that I stole those M&Ms from Randall's and Mom punished me. But since we had already stolen them, she went ahead and gave them to you and Sean. That's what that reminded me of, was like, you would kidnap a senator's daughter? Well, since she's kidnapped and Kenobi's here, I will take the credit. Like, it was funny that he was like, okay, we'll make it work. So I thought that was cool. But that was another
a perfectly good Kenobi.
Say it again. Yeah, don't waste him.
He's here.
So that was pretty cool. Then Leia realizes who Obi-Wan is to an extent, but she thinks that he's the reason she's in trouble, so she doesn't trust him. She's running from him. And they run underneath that really furry, the one that looks like a letter, a mix between a capital A and the llama from the original Dr. Dolittle, which is clearly two people back to back in the suit.
Are you know what I'm talking about? That one monster from Monsters Incorporated University?
Yeah. The one that looks like it just walks from side to side, end over end like a slinky.
Yeah.
And then they're looking for him and looking for Obi-Wan and also their stuff they're trying to find. So it's wild because the bounty hunter's looking for Obi-Wan, the Inquisitor's looking for Obi-Wan, but the Inquisitors are in a race against their own kind because Reva's also looking for Obi-Wan, and everybody wants the favor of Lord Vader. And
who doesn't really, honestly?
And then it's interesting because they get to the dock and Haja's telling them, okay, I'm going to try to make amends, get to the dock, and we'll figure this out. Haja ends up actually being a really good dude, and he does that whole, tries to be the Jedi in Reva's way. You see Reva use the mind reading force ability, just like he said. Only Kylo Ren is really the only person we've seen really use that. She seems to be pretty obviously.
That was fast.
Yeah, I can't tell if it's similarly to a Jedi mind trick where the weaker minded someone is, the easier it is. I wonder if it's the same thing for that, where it's like Rey is powerful in the Force, she's harder to read, but he gets what he wants out of Poe semi easily. I wonder if it's the same thing for her with Haja. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the argument could be made either way. That either
a little bit of both, probably.
Yeah, just so aggressive and like he was kind of a weenie, I don't think he was necessarily stupid, but he obviously wasn't strong enough in the Force to protect his mind and then, doing assault. I think it might have more to do with, because Poe's not weak-minded, you know what I mean? So I think it might have more to do with someone's Force proclivities than necessarily what their
And I thought it was funny that when she slams him up against the fence, he goes,
that wasn't magnets.
That wasn't magnets. Yeah, I thought that was really funny. So let's talk about the Grand Inquisitor a little bit. He catches up with, before that, Reva says, you're not going to die yet.
Today.
I'll take you to Lord Vader. And that gives an emotional response from Obi-Wan that she clearly feels in the Force, and she says, oh, you don't know.
Yeah,
Anakin
that's
Skywalker
tough.
is alive. And so in that moment, the Grand Inquisitor walks in and says, I can stand the reek of your, what's the word he says? Ambition no longer. Yeah. And he tells her to stand aside, and he's getting ready to find Obi-Wan himself, which I'm sorry to say it, but the Grand Inquisitor would have chewed up Obi-Wan as well in that moment.
I think at that state, I think
even Reva could have, I think.
I think maybe Obi-Wan could, because he's such a defensive fighter, I think he could have held off Reva for a little bit.
He probably could have goaded her into a mistake.
I don't think he would have had the Inquisitor.
I saw a video the other day where someone said that Grievous could beat the Grand Inquisitor, and I don't agree with that. The Grand Inquisitor is the Grand Inquisitor for a reason.
I'll say it like this. Okay. So we have to use like a method of comparisons here.
Okay.
Because we have... We'll fight off that argument for a minute, because Grievous, for whatever reason in the film, seems to... He has to have some level of Force sensitivity, because there's no way he even poses a threat to Jedi. Because we see other... Like, even when we look at Vizsla, when he's fighting Darth Maul, he's using a lightsaber, but it's child's play to Maul, honestly.
Right.
So... And he's an accomplished fighter, you know what I mean? So anybody who's not Force sensitive to a degree, there's just no way that I think they even remotely pose a threat to a Jedi when it comes to a lightsaber battle.
Sure.
But we look at Grievous, and even though he's on the run most of the time with Obi-Wan, he still gives up a little bit of a fight. Right?
Yeah.
And so...
Well, we also know that he's been known to... You know, it's interesting, in the book Brotherhood by Mike Chen that just came out about Anakin and Obi-Wan, it talks about Coyote-Mundi still having fresh wounds from his fight with Grievous. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if that's canonizing the Tartakovsky stuff.
But we look at that comparison.
Is, but also Grievous he was a cyborg, so his brain was still his brain, but it was like the reflexibility of it was... immensely more, quicker than what Pre-Vizsla had to offer, because it was a machine.
To a degree, but it's still like the responsiveness of the brain. But we look at that. So Kenobi had a little bit of a challenge from Grievous. Kenobi bested early, what would have been like the best, I think, maybe physical capabilities of Darth Vader in the fight on Mustafar. Because physically he just wasn't as fast or capable as he is suited Darth Vader. But we have early suited Darth Vader in the comics, who goes into the Jedi archives and makes absolute mincemeat of the Grand Inquisitor. And Vader's talking to the Emperor, and he says, hey, this guy could have killed me. And Palpatine says, was it ever a challenge? Was it ever really going to happen? And Vader's like, well, no, obviously he wasn't going to kill me,
Right.
I think Vader looking so lowly upon the Grand Inquisitor in the series of comparisons to the challenge that Grievous gives Obi-Wan, I think peak Grievous may have given Grand Inquisitor a run for his money.
Here's the difference for me. The difference for me is the Grand Inquisitor can tell what type of fighting style you're using in 6 seconds. So in 6 seconds of fighting, he knew who Kanan Jarrus's master was and how to beat him. I mean, it was pretty quick. And of course in Rebels he's defeated because it's plot armor. Mm-hmm. But in my mind, being able to tap into the dark side, having Force abilities, having the wisdom and the knowledge of knowing how exactly to, because the thing is, I don't think that the Grand Inquisitor has the wisdom. I don't think Grievous has the, I think that the Grand Inquisitor using the Force is too quick to switch styles to counterbalance what Grievous may use. I think Grievous knows multiple lightsaber styles as well, but I think that
he's
the
trained
Grand
by Dooku,
Inquisitor,
who was the
I think the
duelist
Inquisitor can
master for the Order for a long time,
Right. But I think the Grand Inquisitor can switch it up on him often enough and regularly enough that Grievous won't get that he won't get that upper hand that he's used to having. And we've seen many times that when Grievous doesn't have the upper hand pretty quickly,
I think
quits.
A lot of Grievous's strength is intimidation. I don't think the Grand Inquisitor would be too fazed by it.
Yeah.
But
While we're on Versus, I was thinking about this earlier this week because the Tales of the Jedi trailer was leaked.
I'm psyched about that.
And I don't want to play it on here because I don't want it to fall into the bad graces of anybody down the road. But something that was hinted at was that there may be a mission where Dooku as a Jedi is on a mission with Mace Windu, and Mace Windu has to tell him to stand down because Count's going a little dark on the mission.
A little too hard.
As far as his,
a little
and we see that in
Force
we see
lightning
that in,
to protect Padawan Qui-Gon.
I was going to say we see that in Jedi Lost. My question to you is, Dooku or Mace Windu in a fight?
Mace Windu.
Really?
Peak, yeah, for sure.
What if Dooku is a Sith and he gets to use lightning?
I think Dooku survived as long as he did because he was also clever and resourceful and knew when to duck out.
Yeah.
Because here's my thing. We see Dooku run from Yoda. Yoda was bested by Palpatine, and Windu bested Palpatine. So
the question you have to answer at that point
is it Palpatine through the fight? But martial artistry, he was able to stave off Sheev for any amount of time. I think maybe I think Mace at peak would have the upper hand over Dooku, because Dooku a lot of times, even in Clone Wars, was challenged enough that he had to duck out. He just tucked tail and ran. So we see somebody even that
and
powerful
I think
a
that
duelist.
because
I think he has flaws.
especially now that Shatterpoint is canon again because of Brotherhood, also by the same one by Mike Chen. It's really good. But I would say because of Shatterpoint, Dooku, who has all these little extra little things like the curved handle and things like that that give him the step above
against most people,
when
I don't
Mace
think
Windu
it would
can
phase
see
Mace Windu at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he sees the Shatterpoint of it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
In the book Shatterpoint, we talked about a few weeks ago, he saw that Dooku was the Shatterpoint for the whole Clone Wars, but didn't kill him because in the moment, he knew that if he killed Dooku, it would be enough time in that split second that Jango would have killed him. The book Shatterpoint, just in that first little few pages, that's the only time it really talks about Jango at length, but it gives me immense respect for how dangerous Jango was to Mace.
Mm-hmm.
And he kind of talks about like how he saw it as like a blessing or like luck or whatever that he was able to win that fight whenever him and Jango fought. Anyways, we're getting off track, but so when the Grand Inquisitor is stabbed, you're made to believe that he's dead. And could the Grand Inquisitor from Rebels be a clone or some kind of dark side magic? Sure. I think personally that when the Grand Inquisitor at the end of season 1 of Rebels says there are fates worse than death, that to me, that speaks of experience and something that's worse than death in his opinion. And I wonder if we'll see like some dark side magic that's torturous, but it also keeps him alive or something along those lines.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think
I'd
after
love to
serving,
see it. I'm all about
as
Sith
the
sorcery that hasn't been touched on very much. I think
right.
The only thing we've ever seen on screen with Sith sorcery, excluding the dark magics of the Night Sisters, would have been the time that Dooku and Palpatine were doing a ritual while Yoda was on Korriban. And that's the only thing we've ever seen. And it's a really, really prominent part of the dark side that's in.
I think you see
Old
some
Republic
stuff
novels.
in Rebels too. There's one time in Rebels where they're in the world between worlds and the Emperor's trying to pull Ezra and Ahsoka through there. But it's still we've ever only seen Palpatine do it twice very shortly in an animated style.
Yeah.
If I saw Sith sorcery live action, I might crap my pants.
Yeah, I'd be here for it because it's just a very out there concept that isn't given a lot of airtime.
And I just think that I think it would push the envelope, but after what we saw in episode 3, I think the envelope is wide open. And I think, man, how like disturbing but satisfying would it be to kind of, because if you've read the books and things, you understand like the Darth Bane novels where it's like, okay, now he needs the Orbalist to protect himself, but it's absolutely torturing him and killing him, but he needs it to survive at this point. It's like he's addicted to his drugs, essentially. You know what I mean? Like it helps him in a lot of ways, but it's also like the source of most of his.
It's not that he wasn't good enough to fight without them. It was that he just relied on them to be a freaking berserker, you know?
Right. And so, but if you're not reading the books and the comics, you're not seeing some of that. Yeah. How crazy would it be? Because mainstream Star Wars right now is these TV shows. How freaking wild would it be if the mainstream audience saw the Grand Inquisitor being like tortured using Sith sorcery to keep him alive, to keep the hunt alive for these Jedi? And it really is the first time, other than the emotional distress and the physical anguish that Anakin goes through, but you don't really, in that moment when you see Anakin being burned alive, your mind goes, wow, he lost a fight. That sucks. You don't realize, unless you're really thinking about it, this is like the result of these sins that he's committed. And it's like, this is what leaning into the dark side cost him ultimately. If he had never leaned into the dark side, this fight doesn't happen. Padme's probably alive somewhere. Like, it would be interesting to see the direct correlation with they're keeping the Grand Inquisitor alive, but he's just in extreme anguish. I don't think they'll show it, and I think there's probably a great chance he's just in a huge blue tub of bacta somewhere. But it would be so rewarding to me to see that physical embodiment of like the dark side's not worth it. Like, he has free reign, he gets to do what he wants, he has more power probably than he would have had as a Jedi, but it's not worth it. Like, the anguish, and it would give so much more weight to that moment where he's hanging from the bridge in Rebels, and it's worth it to him to just fall to his death and burn alive than to go through that again and be submitted to that again. But I do think that I don't think they'll do a cloning thing. There's been a huge backlash from not the majority, but a decent amount of people over the Palpatine cloning and Snoke and all that stuff. So I do think that they'll just find a way that he's in stasis somewhere. But I thought it was an immense shock moment. I don't know about you, but when I watched that, I was with Adam, and when we watched that, we were like, what the frick? And his first thing was like, when is Rebels? Like, he immediately was like trying to do the math in his head, you know? What were you thinking? Like, when did you were at camp, so when did you get to finally watch episode 2, and what were your thoughts when that was going down?
I watched episode 2 during a break time because I downloaded episodes 1 and 2 when they came out and got to watch them, as I had availability.
Okay.
I wasn't surprised that it happened because it's just the nature of the dark side for something like that to occur. I was surprised that the Grand Inquisitor was susceptible to an attack like that. Like, I would have thought he would have been on edge or expecting something like that. So
yeah,
the fact
maybe
that
he was just so hungry in that moment, right?
Yeah, but still, you know what I mean? You would think he would, I don't know, have some sort of awareness that something like that was about to happen, even like move out of the way a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the fact that he fell to it shocked me a little bit. The fact that it happened didn't shock me at all.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
But yeah.
And so going forward with that, she obviously has nothing to do with the Inquisitors as far as like any camaraderie. She's not in on the circle.
Oh yeah, she's looking out for
like the
number 3.
It seems like the fourth brother and the fourth sister and the fifth brother get along okay. The Grand Inquisitor, anytime he needs anything, seems to kind of lean on the fifth brother, and no one's asking. Huh?
I said no love for that joke, huh?
I didn't hear what you said.
I said she's looking out for number 3.
No, I didn't hear that. That's pretty funny. So my question is, and here's what I'll say. I want to see where this is. Okay, an hour and 12 minutes. Okay. I want to put a picture here on the screen to get to. I sent you this earlier, but I want the viewers to watch it too. There's a picture of these posters that have been coming out, the day after the episode airs or whatever. And they're this very they use the same style for everybody, similar to Book of Boba Fett had the spice or the sand kind of flowing. You have these pictures, and the posters are the left eye of the character. Their left, our right, is one of the twin sons. And in the bad guy characters, like the Grand Inquisitor, the fifth brother, Obi-Wan is the character that's in focus in that eye. But for Obi-Wan, for Haja, and for Reva, it's Vader in the eye. And I'm wondering if there's some way, let's really quick just run with the theory that she's one of those younglings that survived for some reason. Maybe Anakin saw her reach into someone's mind or something along those lines, or maybe freaking, who knows, maybe the Emperor did or whatever. And that's why she's been pulled into the Grand Inquisitors. Maybe, or not the Grand Inquisitors, but the group of Inquisitors. I wonder, there's a part of me that wonders if she's not full dark, but she's like by any means necessary type of dark. And if she has to kill people, if she has to, like, it's not about Obi-Wan. Who cares about him? I think, what if she's trying to get close to Vader because she wants to kill him for being the one that led the order that killed her master or her friends or whatever? You know what I mean?
I could see kind of like a dark disciple almost, tapping into whatever it takes to get the mission accomplished. I think also it might be looking into her character that not necessarily she wants to kill Vader, but she wants to be Vader. You know what I mean? She's power hungry. She wants to be as elevated as she can. So I don't know,
it's not about being Grand Inquisitor. Maybe it's about being even above Vader himself.
Mm-hmm.
The replacement or whatever.
I think because Kenobi for her is a means to an end. She's not hunting Kenobi. She's hunting what happens after Kenobi. But for Vader, Kenobi is the end. For the Grand Inquisitor, Kenobi is the end because that's his mission. That's what he's as high as he wants to go. You know what I mean? He doesn't have any ambitions to raise.
He has no aspirations above.
He only answers to Vader. He doesn't want to be Vader. He knows he can't beat Vader. And so he's sitting pretty in his mind. Mm-hmm.
But Reva's just ambitious enough to be stupid enough to try to go higher.
Yeah.
Interesting. And maybe it's not a surprise good guy type of thing. It's just she's so power hungry that Vader
I think
is the seat she wants to sit in.
The nature of the dark side. You saw her kill her immediate superior because she saw an opening. You know what I mean? And so I think given the opportunity to do the same thing to Vader, obviously it would never happen, but given the opportunity, she would seize it. No questions asked.
Yeah. Yeah. So closing out episode 2, obviously that crazy moment revealing she knows who Anakin is, which is still a huge mystery.
That's bonkers.
I will say
to
this.
me.
I have vehemently defended her knowing who he is, specifically on our YouTube. And people are pissed, and I've been defending it, saying, I'm telling you, they're going to play it out. They're going to let us know. And I guess after the whole Snoke debacle, which was he Plagueis? Was he supposed to be Plagueis? But then he was a nobody, but then he was a clone, and just all of that. Obviously, now we have a concrete reasoning within the universe, but in our world, that doesn't mean that was the plan the whole time. It could have been switched around 3 or 4 or 5 different times, and now we have an actual concrete whatever. People do not have faith that there's a plan going forward of why she knows it's Anakin. And I'll say this, if they show us why she knows, or they give us a reason, I'll be okay with it, especially if it's, I don't know, like I said, maybe she was a Padawan and found out about it at the temple or some other way, maybe she read someone's mind who knew it or whatever, especially because she has that ability. But if we go the whole season and she dies and the character is never explained why she knew who Anakin was, I think that will be a big disservice to the last 45 years of it being a really big deal knowing who Anakin was.
Yeah, there has to be some connection for her to know. She said something about the
that
archives.
Was the huge deal. That's what sets Tarkin aside. That's what sets Thrawn aside, as these brilliant minds who can put 2 and 2 together. She's not on that level.
There has to be, I can't imagine that they just leave it. They're like, yep, she figured it out. You know what I mean? Because because
the Grand Inquisitor doesn't know.
Grand Inquisitor doesn't know. Tarkin figured it out because he's Tarkin. Thrawn only figured it out because he knew who Anakin was.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know how she knows it, and I don't know how she's still alive having figured it out. Because she's not nearly as useful as Thrawn or Tarkin.
No. And I think that either she's...
Not one of a kind either. Like, Thrawn's one of a kind, Tarkin's one of a kind.
Yeah.
Palpatine and Vader both know they're not getting replaced.
Sister. Yeah. And what's interesting is she's... I was saying this earlier, or on the short I made. I think she's either going to use it to try to blackmail him in a sense, like everybody's going to know, or she's going to use it to be, or she's going to say, hey, you can trust me. I know your deepest, darkest secret. And either one of those is a terrible choice. You know what I mean?
Either one of those is suicide, buddy.
So
Vader
obviously
like,
we've talked about our overall thoughts. We've kind of, we've kind of put those out there. You said this one's a 9 for you.
Yeah, I think I might
They're all
even rate
9s?
episode 3 a 9.5. Honestly, I really liked episode 3.
Ooh, no, we're
There's a
in 2.
lot
We're in
for
2
it.
still.
Yeah, I know. I said all of them were 9. I said earlier.
Oh,
This
okay,
one will probably
okay.
stay 9 for me. I might elevate episode 3.
Okay, so standout moment for you: Grand Inquisitor being gutted, the Reva moment.
I think the standout moment for me would definitely either be seeing how hard Obi-Wan had to struggle to connect with the Force at all.
Yeah, that's a big
or
deal.
Seeing that time when it's revealed to Kenobi that Anakin's still alive, both in the way that it hits Obi-Wan so hard and in the way
Yeah.
that Reva knows something she absolutely should not know.
Yeah, that's the moment for me because it's the panic in him.
Mm-hmm.
There's a
I mean,
panic there.
He's shell shocked. You know,
Yeah.
Leia's trying to
And I
get through
think
to him, and he's not connected.
You know, the Vader's his job description is loose enough that the panic sets in when you realize if he finds out that his kids are out there, he's gonna not stop until he finds them. The Emperor has so many other things going on. You might live out your days on Tatooine, cutting up random whale fish in the desert and feeding your Eopie and crapping in the sand and covering it up with other sand and sleeping on a bunk bed in your sand castle hole in the ground, talking to your Jawa friend. You could just live out your days. If
Well,
Anakin Skywalker finds out his kids are alive, he will not stop until he finds them. We found that out through comics and stories and books and movies.
Yeah, I think the other part of it too is the devastation we see in Yoda when he fails to kill Palpatine. He exiles himself. You know what I mean? That's like,
yeah,
that's ultimate devastation. And so now we have Obi-Wan who thinks he carried out his mission successfully, and not only did he fail to kill the person he was supposed to kill, which was exile-worthy behavior for Yoda, but it's someone who is his best friend. So there's the devastation of failure, and then the mixed emotions of having this love-hate relationship, like literally love, literally hate relationship with this person who was his unquestionably closest friend, unquestionably like, you know, son, brother figure in his life that he had the task of killing. And so he thinks he's struggling with it still. He's still having nightmares. And then he thinks it's not even nightmares anymore. It's reality again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That it's not as behind him as he thought, and it still wasn't even that far behind him. So there's just so much.
And that's the
going
crazy
on with
part
him.
is Bale says, look, we all failed. Who cares?
Yeah.
You know what's weird to me? Don't you think Bail Organa would know about Darth Vader?
You would think so, but I think Vader was still quiet enough. Like by the time we get to A New Hope Vader, like people know who Vader is. I think 10 years into it, I think he might still be not prominent enough for Bale to know who it is.
Yeah. It makes sense because the Senate is still in play. You know what I mean? Like he would be a known henchman, but by Empire Strikes Back, when it's been gone for 3 or 4 years, he can do whatever he wants.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. You would think Bale would be like, hey, I thought you killed Anakin. Because he would know who Vader was, I would assume.
I would think so. I don't know. It's never really clearly shown how blatant Yoda and Obi-Wan are with Bale and the whole, you know, round table meeting about what are we going to do with the kids.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay, so new characters. Haja's one. He was a pretty interesting character, kind of silly, but did play a bigger role. Dinosaur Bounty Hunter was a cool one, but not significant. Who else shows up in this episode? Nobody really. That it's a very much a continuation of the last story.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there are long-standing new introductions. I don't think we'll see Haja again.
Right.
I don't think we'll see Flea again. I think he's donezo.
Well, he's dead. Remember the Grand Inquisitor killed him?
That story arc of like the bounty hunters. And he might have just tortured him. I don't know that it never actually showed. Like
he definitely
Tori,
pushed him into a blender lightsaber.
When Tori watches movie, she's like, no body, no death. She's like, if I don't see the actual dead body, the character's not dead. So I was like, oh, I didn't see the body.
Samuel L. Jackson agrees.
Yeah. So Yeah, I don't think we got any introductions of people that'd be like, oh, this guy again. You know what I mean? I think
Right.
everybody that might make a resurgence only comes up in episode 3.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so moving into episode 3, we got a lot of stuff going on. It's pretty wild.
It's very wild.
And so we start with the remembering. It's right there. Obi-Wan is in his state of he's meditating. He's still seeking Qui-Gon. He's still asking Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
He's
It's
back.
sad,
He's coming.
man.
You hear
that
all
hurts
of the
me.
flashbacks.
But
The
do you agree
flashbacks
with me?
kill me.
He sees that person in the desert. Do you agree that he thinks he
that's
sees
Anakin.
Qui-Gon? I was thinking Qui-Gon.
Oh, no, that's Anakin.
I didn't get a good enough look to make an argument, but he's like seeking
If you pause it and
after-
look at it, the person
Is it?
doesn't have any facial hair or anything like that.
Okay.
I
Never
think he's
mind
just
then.
being haunted,
Yeah. Well, that also makes sense why he's like, hey, we got to be careful. Stay close to me.
Yeah. And there's the same...
Because he wouldn't have known what Vader looked like either. He hadn't seen the suit. So his
Right.
mental image would have been Anakin. That makes
right.
sense.
And you kind of hear the doom of like time kind of slowing down and him being like, whoa, what's going on? It's that same moment that he has in the shed. So he's seeking Qui-Gon, and then after he seeks him, at the end of episode 2, it seems like it's the first time, and we can't prove this. We don't know this. There hasn't been a novelization or a big talk about it. I wonder in the gallery if we'll hear about this, but there's a moment where at the end of episode 2, you hear Obi-Wan go,
Mhm.
and that's when you hear the boom, and Vader's eyes open. I think that's him reaching out for the first time. To me, it kind of feels like that. So, and maybe it's not, but there's a moment in that same time where it's like he's meditating, he's thinking, you're hearing all of the flashbacks of the warnings and the love and the hate and the pain that he's gone through. And then he opens up his eyes and he's like, he's coming, Master, talking about, to Qui-Gon. And then you have the moment where you see, this is the most we've ever seen Vader have the suit coming on.
We get to see the whole Doc Ock kind of back hose operation.
Yeah, it looks like his suit is like screwed into his frame in a sense from the back,
Yeah, I mean, even that light panel on his chest, it's going into freaking
It's like
Matrix
going
portholes, man.
into- Yeah. It's not in my mind. I guess I thought that he was just really injured and he just
In
put
the
on his
suit.
clothes, but it's like he's encased,
Yeah.
which makes a lot of sense because we've always heard about the suit being extremely painful and uncomfortable, and that's part of his life at this point.
The suit's a colostomy bag, man.
Yeah, it sucks. And you see Hayden, the mask is right here,
Dude.
and you see the mask come down over Hayden.
You get that sound effect from episode 3.
Yeah.
Can we talk about how Freck is that guy from Scrubs?
Yeah.
That's
What's
hilarious to me.
What's his real name?
Zach Braff.
Zach Braff or Graff?
With a B, yeah.
Yeah. That was really funny. Yeah, the Freck was a cool character. Looked gross.
I think he's more left as Star Wars or Star Nose Mole.
Yeah, definitely looks like a mole. Darth Mole.
More?
More? So the arrival on Mapuzo, Freck is there. You get some cool stormtrooper fighting action. It's ironic
sense
that Obi-Wan, who
fight.
hates blasters.
Yeah, I know. Only using a blaster. And then I also think about when he was undercover in the box, right? And he was aces with that blaster. Could not miss. And then you see him in these blaster shootouts and he's missing. I'm like, man, he's not Obi-Wan as we know it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
he's getting the job
Obi-Wan doesn't
done, but
miss.
he's not an ace.
He doesn't miss. And so seeing him actually fight with competence against the stormtroopers, I'm like, all right, we're kind of getting there a little bit. Like the wheels are turning.
A little bit.
Yeah. He's taking less
the
hits.
rust
He's
is
not
coming
bleeding
off.
this time.
I thought it was really sad whenever you have that moment. They're in the back of Freck's truck and he calls So Luma's her code name. Leia's hiding, and he calls her Leia. He's like, they know where they're going, Leia. And the stormtrooper's like, you called her Leia. And then he looked at her and he said, that was her mother's name. I get confused sometimes. When I look at her, I think about her mother. And I was watching it with Macy, and Macy was like, oh. Like, it was just so sad. Like, frick, dude. Like,
Yeah.
man, it just is really sad. And you finally get to the gate. The gate fight was cool. I love, dude. What was your thought whenever
half
by the freaking gate? That was so
sick, nasty.
So that was dope. You finally get into town. You have this Imperial that's undercover who's hiding and like basically smuggling Jedi through, an underground railroad.
Let's talk about how you never responded to my text. They confirmed that Quinlan Vos is alive.
Yeah.
It hadn't been like it'd been confirmed through like speculation and chain codes and stuff, but verbally on screen, Quinlan Vos is alive. That's so freaking.
It had been
that's
confirmed
massive to me.
In the comics when Vader and the Grand Inquisitor first start working together. There's a list of Jedi Masters that they're specifically looking for, and Yoda's name is there, Obi-Wan's name is there, and Quinlan Vos's name is there.
Aru Besh, and so it's like it's confirmed, but it's not confirmed. You know what I mean? Like it's like speculatory or speculative. And
what do you mean?
But like to hear, well, I mean, it's like it's confirmed in the way that like between then and now we don't actually know if he's still alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of question marks. So we know to this point he's still alive.
We knew before that he had survived 66 because of the comics, but this could be years after that.
This tells me that there's even the smallest chance that like my second or third favorite Jedi gets to get featured in the show about my number one favorite Jedi. So this is big for me.
It's big for you. It's big for me. Whenever he goes up to the wall and he says, "Oh, Quinlan was here," and the lady that Tala, I think her name is, says, "Yeah, he works for me from time to time, getting younglings
that's super
through."
Sick, because that's Quinlan, man. He's just,
and that's the thing, yeah. And I love that he said,
man.
"Only when your eyes are closed can you see the way." And I think that means just chill, just remove the distractions, like trust in the Force. And in Legends, Quinlan and another Jedi escaped Order 66 together by the name of Kakruk. So it's exponentially harder for me to imagine seeing him on screen. I don't even know how much ape crap I will go if Quinlan and Kakruk are on screen. I don't even know what I'll do.
I don't know. I think there's the possibility, though, man, and that's what matters to me.
That's what matters. And they're going to go to Jabim, which is in the Clone Wars.
You've never seen live action Quinlan with lines. You see him in the background in the Phantom Menace.
Yeah, he was someone that was, he was a nobody. He was an extra that they made a character because of comics.
Yeah, and so I'm like, this would be huge for me as an individual.
Oh, it's incredibly important. And there's other characters that are lesser known that's names were on the wall as well, which is really interesting. I would like to say I do think that one of the reasons that I think that Reva was a Jedi before she was just found, like you were saying, is in the moment where the Vader's revealed, he's coming down the street. This is the most savage Vader we've ever seen. The brutalizing of a father. The son comes out to help his dad. He throws the son to the ground with the Force and snaps his neck.
I thought that was the end of it, that he breaks his neck. And I was like, I was watching it with Tori. That was the one I actually got to watch on a TV instead of just my stupid freaking phone. And he throws him up against the wall. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, that was brutal. And then he snaps his neck. And I was like, oh my God.
It was very dark. And it was
the most villainy we've ever seen him live action.
Yeah, because in Rogue One, if you argue no, Rogue One is more violent, yes.
This was like wartime. Those were people active
those
opponents.
Were enemies.
He's just blasting civilians,
different.
Man.
It's
he's
different.
Draxing them's clounced.
He's,
you know what I mean?
It's
just
different
lighting them
when
up.
it's World War II and there's clear lines and it's America, it's Germany, it's Japan, there's clear lines there. It's
It's the
different when
Empire. It's all Iran.
it's different when you are in Vietnam and it's villages and like
Yeah.
some of the darkest moments in our country's history,
He's
especially in
freaking
wartime.
Sabretooth, man.
It's wild,
Lighting
dude.
up
It's like,
civilians.
yeah, it's whatever it takes. And it's not even because they're sympathizers. They have no freaking clue what's going on. It's
Yeah, it's
because he wants
literally
to
just
get an
'cause they're
emotional
available.
rise out of Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, it's pulling on that relationship that he has. He's like, this will piss off Obi-Wan. And
Yeah.
he just does it.
And so after that's happening and Vader's chasing down Obi-Wan, there's a moment that to me symbolizes that Reva was for sure part of the Jedi Order, because when she goes to the safe house, you see the Jedi symbol scratched into the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And when also Caleb Doom's name is on the wall in there, which is pretty cool.
I didn't go through the trouble of looking up the translations.
Yeah, so it's interesting. You see the Jedi symbol written on the wall with the saber with the wings on either side.
Mm-hmm.
And Reva turns and she just smacks a whole like shelf full of stuff and screams. And I think to me that wasn't oh man, the Jedi were here. I think she's reliving that pain of what 66 was. There's connection points there. There's a moment also, remember when she's talking to Vader and she tries to frame Obi-Wan for the Grand Inquisitor, which that was a really cool line from Vader where she's like, Obi-Wan will pay for the Grand Inquisitor. And Vader cuts her off and goes, the Grand Inquisitor is nothing.
Yeah.
All that matters now is Kenobi. But when she goes to talk to the fifth brother, there's a weird moment where the fifth brother is pissed off that she talks to Vader one-on-one. And then when she says to send the probes, the Inquisitor fifth brother says, you will get what you deserve, and so will I. Like basically, I deserve to be in that Grand Inquisitor's chair if he doesn't make it or whatever. And he leaves the scene, and under her breath, Reva says, I hope so. And it's a weird, I don't know. I just have this gut feeling that she's gunning for Vader. And whether it's for his job or whether it's for revenge, I feel like she's got her own motives that are outside of what the other Inquisitors are trying to do.
Yeah, I mean,
And that's why I think there's the Jedi connection there, because clearly it's a very clearly painted reaction to she sees the Jedi symbol on the wall and she freaks the freak out and smacks all that stuff around before she starts to chase after Leia.
Yeah, I could see. I mean, I can like in the math homework analogy, like I can check your work and see how you arrived at the answer you've arrived at. In the scene with the third brother or fifth brother, for me, it's more like she's saying like basically the same answer from the different perspective. Like he's like, you're gonna get what you deserve, and I'm gonna get what I want, you know. And she's like, oh yeah, me too. I hope so. Like saying that she deserves to have the Grand Inquisitor spot. I think maybe the way I felt watching her in the safe house room was her seeing how close she was and seeing that like she almost had Kenobi, and yet at the same time, like now she's having to stand down and Vader's got Kenobi. Like instead of her getting the credit for it, like she was this close, she could taste it, and it would have been, you know, her grace that got, you know, Kenobi under Vader's thumb, and really it was like now Vader's going to close in on Kenobi. You know, like she was this close and now it's out of reach. So I can see where you're at. I can also see like different solutions to the problem, but either way, she's very close to the heart of the issue.
Yeah.
And
they're definitely giving us little glimpses of something that we don't know yet for sure.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. I think she's definitely an unknown at this point, but I don't want to go as far as to say that I've figured it out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm really interested. As much as people have been kind of ragging on the character, it definitely is something that's on my mind that I'm wondering, like, even when the acting felt weird or clunky in part 1, part 2 it got better, part 3 it got better, and at this point we're halfway through the season and I'm really freaking curious what's going to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Definitely.
Um,
Can we talk about Vader versus Kadobi?
oh yeah, that's the biggest thing. So that's the overall. I mean, overall thoughts. We've said that rating 1 through 10. You said 9.5. I'll match you 9.5. It was fantastic. I loved it. I've watched it 4 times since yesterday. And so standout. New characters. Quinlan Voss,
Quinlan Voss
Tala.
by name.
Yeah,
Tall on the flesh. Freck. I think Freck's, obviously he's a one-off.
yeah. Freck's a pretty interesting character, though. I liked his character.
I enjoyed his character.
And then the
But
standout
Vader
moment
versus Kenobi.
has to be Vader versus Kenobi. So talk to me about it.
Well, you don't see Kenobi run. He doesn't do it. And you see him genuinely afraid. And you see Vader toying with him, saying the years have made you weak. Just punking him the whole time. Vader's very in command of the situation to the point where
It's so sad when Obi-Wan says, "What have you become?" And Vader "I'm what you made me." Ugh.
And Vader's just
sad.
toying with him the whole time. And you can see that, Obi-Wan's still in mourning, and Vader, via the way of the dark side, is still bitter and angry and resentful.
Yeah.
And obviously not taking, accountability for, his part of it. It's all Kenobi's fault.
Yeah, it's Kenobi's fault.
Kenobi turned, Padme against Vader, et cetera, et cetera. And
right.
to the point where he's saying, now you'll suffer. And he literally rakes him over the coals. And I was like, oh my God.
Dude,
for a minute, I was outside of the Star Wars universe where it's like, oh yeah, Bactel take care of that. And I was like, oh my God, he's a burn victim. You know what I mean? Like,
no, I literally, like you were saying, it was so intense that I forgot that Obi-Wan obviously has to survive. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, he's going to burn him to death
I was in this situation.
I was legitimately worried for the life of Kenobi, even though we know he has to survive.
Yeah, I didn't have like the mental continuity of like, he's going to be fine. Like there was no relaxation or assurance for me that, we see Kenobi obviously in later shows and films. It was all in the back of my mind. I was like, if he sees Vader, he is screwed 6 ways from Sunday. Like there's no way he's getting out of this. And we saw that in the dynamic. Vader is absolutely toying with them the entire time.
It's so freaking sad, dude.
So I need to see Kenobi make a comeback. I need it.
Right. So let me ask you this. That's obviously both of our standout moment. So this is the part where we've skipped over this for the first 2 because we've seen episode 3, but you've rated it. You've told us what you thought. Mm-hmm. So what is next? What do you want to see? What do you assume? We're already halfway through this season.
Mm-hmm. I'll be surprised if we get any inkling of Qui-Gon before episode 5 at the earliest, maybe episode 6, because that feels like a finale revealer that they've been building up to the entire season. We've got to see Kenobi make a connection with the Force because he's gotten the idea that, hey, this is bigger than me. I'm not who I need to be to accomplish what I need to accomplish. And now Leia's not in the hands of bounty hunters. She's in the hands of an Inquisitor. So she's not just in the hands of an auxiliary force that's like near the Empire. She's very much in the depths of the Empire itself. And so he's going to need to.
She's in the most danger she's been in ever.
Yeah, since the beginning of the show. And so he needs to be more than who he is right now to do what he needs to do. I think he's too invested in the life of Leia to just be like, well, I tried. Like he's more Kenobi now than we've seen him. And I think I think we're going to see him dig in some more to be who he needs to be so that he can do what he needs to do.
And you know what? I think because he needs to go to that place, I think it's, I think that Obi-Wan right now is in that place of that picture that you see at all the Christian bookstores where it says, I saw the path and there were 2 sets of steps and then there was only one. And the Lord replied, that's when I carried you. Mm-hmm. And I think he's in his lowest low right now. He's in the he's in the lowest he could have been since Revenge of the Sith. Mm-hmm. And I think that's why we're going to see Qui-Gon next episode.
You think next episode? I think best case scenario.
I scheduled a summer start party for youth next Wednesday so that I don't have to think about anything except for just having a party, because I think we're going to see Qui-Gon and I don't think I'm going to be able to focus.
I think best case scenario, we see him communicate via the Force with Yoda. Because they've made it such a big thing
Yeah.
about wanting to get in touch with Qui-Gon, and now that
I know.
there's
I just have a
the
gut feeling, dude.
Now that there's the rumor that there's going to be a second season, I'll be
That's
very,
true. That's a game changer
to see Qui-Gon before Episode 5 at the earliest.
So let's say this: if we don't see Qui-Gon,
it'll be a welcome surprise. Don't get me wrong.
Sure.
It'll be a surprise.
But he is going to need some kind of help. He needs some milk.
He's got Tala. I would actually be less surprised to see Quinlan Vos reprise his role.
I was going to say,
because he's already in those mitts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he's the Padawan that was next to Obi-Wan that was always kind of pushing Obi-Wan's buttons.
Yeah,
but they honestly already work so good together.
There. And I think that connection with Quinlan would be the physical connection, the mental connection, the personal connection, that Quinlan would be able to speak to Kenobi, not just as the probably Padawan would be like, you were once a great Jedi, but like Quinlan would be like, this isn't you. You know what I mean? Quinlan would be able to speak to...
Yeah, you don't know about the guy. You know the guy.
He knows the guy. And Quinlan would be the person who ran, but also then got back in the fight. You know what I mean? And I think he would be able to pull Kenobi back in the fight.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think we either see Qui-Gon's Force Ghost or we see Quinlan Vos next episode. Either one of which...
I don't think we'll ever see Qui-Gon's Force Ghost. I think we'll hear his voice.
You think we'll just...
because his training was incomplete via the Clone Wars. He wasn't able to take on a physical form. And I don't know if that means that he couldn't do it yet or he couldn't do it ever. But I know that...
No. He for sure can take a physical form at some point, because he takes physical form in the Master and Apprentice short story.
Does he take... Is it
It
physical?
talks about there's a pain because he is leaving the cosmic force to become a part of the physical world again, but he takes solace in the fact that it'll only be a moment. And it talks about how his if you go back and it's just like 15 minutes, go re-listen to it tonight, and it talks about he's a skeleton, and then flesh goes over bone, and then hair and cloth, and it talks about basically he's stepping out of the cosmic force, because when he's in the cosmic force, he's a part of everything and everything's a part of him. And the hardest part mentally is to separate yourself from the cosmic force to become Qui-Gon. He has to remember his whole identity, and then the physical oomph that it takes, and the almost pain being separated. It's kind of like whenever someone says, like, if you guys ever went to heaven, you wouldn't want to come back. It's that same thing. Like, he doesn't want, but Obi-Wan needs him. Yeah. And so he steps away. And so he definitely can take a physical form at some point.
Okay. Well, we might see it. Anyway, my computer's about to die, so we got to wrap this bad boy up.
So you think next episode... So let me ask you this. Where do you see the season going? How are they going to get... Do you think he's got to... So Leia's going to be taken to the Inquisitor's castle, and he's going to have to go there to get her back, is my guess.
Yeah.
And so that may open the door, if that is the case, right? That may open the door for another Jedi who's been to the Inquisitor's castle before to help him. So it could be... We may not see... We may never see Quinlan in the physical, but we may see Cal Kestis. Because Jabim, which is the place they're taking him to when Tala picks him up, they talk about the path. There's a certain... Almost like a... almost like a... What do you call it? Frick, dude, I'm having a brain fart here. Is it a celestial body that like makes of a picture? What do you call that?
I don't know if I'm smelling what you're stepping in, man.
Like the Big Dipper, the Little Dipper, what are those called?
Constellations.
It's almost like a connect the dots constellation type thing, where it seems like the path has a specific route that they take to get Jedi out. And so I wonder if Cal Kestis is on that next stop.
Yeah,
But it's interesting. We'll see. We'll see.
definitely.
Are you so? When are you? So now that you're back away from being out of cell service and stuff, what does the world look like for you? Are you waking up early and watching them before work, or how's that work?
Oh, I don't go to work till noon on Wednesdays, so
Okay, so you wake up, have some brekkies, and watch Obi-Wan.
yep. Probably
Fantastic.
Obi-Wan then Breckies.
Okay,
Priorities.
so our hopes are either Cal Kestis or Qui-Gon or Quinlan Vos for Part 4. The stakes are high. I can see next week being a little bit of a letdown because of how high stakes and how high energy the end of Episode 3 was, just to be completely blunt and honest.
I think there's a lot they've got to do, so I wouldn't surprise me if it's high energy for the rest of the series.
Yeah, I hope so. All right, well, we'll let you guys run. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget, if you enjoyed this, please like this video on YouTube, send it to your friends and family, all that kind of cool stuff. Follow us everywhere. Don't forget, the Force will be with you always.
And remember, the only family you have here is me.
We'll see you guys next time. Peace.